I don't know that that's true. What percentage of the global population, not is white, is female? Approximately 49.7% of the global population is female. So that means 50.3% is male, which, with 8 billion people, that's basically even. The global ratio is for every 100 women, there are about 102 men, which makes sense given that there are certain countries that have imposed one-child laws, and then in those countries, the population skews male, because especially in those countries with large poor populations and large rural populations, effectively peasant populations, a female child isn't as useful. Sorry, that's the view. Isn't as useful as what they would consider a male child to be, because they just look at a female child and say, oh, we're just giving her away. She's going to marry somebody else, and now we have nobody to support us. But a male child in lots of those cultures is the child responsible for caring for parents in old age. And so if a country institutes a one-child policy, the inclination will be we want a male child. So the population actually skews male globally. Barely, but it does. So we talked yesterday then at length about homologous chromosomes, which you would have talked about in Science 9 in the process of meiosis and mitosis. We talked about alleles. This guy right here is really the first new piece of vocabulary. Alleles isn't something that you would ever really discuss in Science 9 in the biology unit there. Alleles, the way we describe them, were alleles are the specific genetic, the gene chunk that can be expressed differently in different people, but is for the same trait. For example, just looking out at all of you, a really simple example of this would be, what does your hair do naturally? Some of you have, and I don't know if it's natural, but some of you have poker straight hair. Some of you get the waves and the curls. You can tell mine's getting longer. If I didn't gel it, mine gets really quite curly in the back and starts to wave out. All of you guys, your hair does kind of its own thing before you put product in it, before you straighten it, before you style it. Those are all examples of different alleles for the same genetic trait of what does your hair do? Eye color is similar but more complicated. There's multiple genes that go into what your eye color is. But even just looking at all of you, every one of you is making eye contact with me right now. And I can tell that there are some of you with really quite dark brown eyes. Some of you have hazel. Some of you have blue. Do any of you have blue eyes? There's a couple blue eyes in the back corner. Green is really quite a rare color. I don't know if any of you have green eyes. And then there's that where you get, and I had a buddy in elementary school who had his heterochromia was very distinct. There was a line vertically in his eye. The left half was brown, the right half was blue, and there was no blending. It was weird. So why does that happen? The genetic expression for these things can be a bunch of different genes, and so when you have that, all of the different ways those genes can be expressed are called alleles. So you guys here, the hair is a really easy example. You can look around and say, all of your guys' hair is doing different things, whether it's curly or straight or whatever. And the alleles for that are quite obvious. But then we were looking at the homologous chromosome, this idea down here, where you get one side of a homologous chromosome pair. One comes in a proper genetic situation or scenario. One comes from mother, one comes from father. Assuming you don't get a bonus third one from a problem with meiosis. You'll get one from biological mother, one from biological father, and they might code for the same thing. Mine didn't. My mom has brown eyes, my dad has blue eyes. I got brown eyes, my sister's got blue eyes. If both of your parents have brown eyes, you're going to have more likely chance of you having brown eyes, but there is a possibility that, and we'll look at something called a Punnett square. If you have two parents with brown eyes, there is a possibility that another color is buried under the genetic code for another color is buried underneath there. And so you can have the situation where brown-eyed parents and brown-eyed parents could have a blue-eyed child. It's possible. There are certain combinations that aren't possible in other traits. If your parents have a particular blood type each, there are certain blood type combinations that would not be possible for you to have, for example, and we'll look at those. So how these things get expressed is a huge part of what we're going to talk about in this chapter. So the example that I was giving you down here that we didn't have time to finish was this. These different alleles, they might code for the same idea. The idea in the example that I've used here again and again is hair. What does your hair do? And so that's the overarching idea, or eye color might be the overarching idea. But the codes in these different parts of the homologous chromosome pair, they might code for the same idea, but may have different thoughts. About the idea. One of these alleles might say, nah, the hair is going to be poker straight. And the other allele is going to be like, nah, it's going to be wildly curly. And so when both alleles show up, they might actually work together. It's called codominance. We're going to, where two traits blend. There's incomplete dominance, when we'll talk about this, where both traits show up. There's full dominance, where one trait overrides the other completely. And then there's a fourth one that we'll talk about called, maybe you get a recessive expression. We'll talk about all that. So that was the idea of the introduction to this idea of alleles. Now flip the page. All of you have one of these. This thing is called a karyotype, or a karyotype. So the particular set of chromosomes that an organism has, comma, should be a comma there, can be seen in what's called a karyotype. And your karyotype is going to be different than anyone else's karyotype unless you have a genetically identical sibling. To prepare a karyotype, what happens is a cell is collected from a specific organism. And then that cell is treated to stop cell division at a particular stage. They want to freeze it. In fact, not freeze as in we're shoving it in a freezer, but they pause it at a particular location. What stage of the cell cycle does it need to stop at to get fully condensed chromosomes that haven't duplicated? Does anyone remember what stage the chromosomes have condensed but have not yet been copied happens? The overarching portion of the cell cycle is called what? When does cell division start to happen? During? Metaphase is the specific phase. I was looking for the word mitosis. But yeah, metaphase is the one where chromosomes have been condensed but have not yet been duplicated. So the karyotype, the cell for this, is collected during, you want to find a cell that's undergoing metaphase. So they might collect a whole bunch of cells, freeze them all, and then look at each one under a microscope. Hands up if you did a microscope lab in Science 9. You were all supposed to, depending who you had as a teacher. I know Mrs. Gill's class did not. Well, someone who had Mrs. Gill told me they didn't. But all of you should have, whether it was Easton or Gerbrand or me or whoever. Mr. O, I know the rest of us all would have. And you would have looked for stages of mitosis in, I think they were onion root. Yes, Evelyn. Karyotype? No. A karyotype is just, let me finish explaining what it is. So they find these cells they collect a whole bunch of cells, they'd freeze them all, they'd stain them all, is this blank here, they get stained, The staining process helps all the individual pieces really stand out. And then they look at them under a microscope. They pick one that demonstrates metaphase, toss all of the rest away. The staining produces a banding pattern on the chromosomes that makes them really, really clear and easy to identify under high-powered microscope. The chromosomes are then sorted and paired. That hasn't happened in metaphase yet. And then you can present, so if Evelyn, if we did this to you, we'd probably go digging for not a top skin cell layer, because the top couple layers of your skin don't replicate, but you go down a couple layers and you'd get where your skin is freshly produced. You'd go down, maybe that'd be an easy way to do it. Go down to that layer, collect a bunch of samples from you. We freeze them all, like pause them all at their stage of division, stain them all, find one that's undergoing metaphase. Then we could take that individual cell, we could organize all of the chromosomes in it. It's not easy to do, but it is doable. And then we could present each one of you with your own karyotype, the specific expression of your chromosomes organized in their homologous pairs. You could do this to anybody. It's expensive, so we don't present every human being with, here's your genetic representation. It's a lot of work to do, but if it was necessary, it could be done. And so then you get all these pairs, and the homologous chromosomes show up paired together. The centromeres are in the same spot, and we know, and they're roughly the same size. And we say, okay, these are the homologous pairs. Each side of this would have the genetic coding for the same traits. They might express those traits differently, but in pair number one, you get the coding for the same areas of the human body. So this whole thing is the karyotype. Everything on this side, these are all your autosomes, and then the sex chromosomes get separated out here. The sex chromosomes are the ones that are not the same. I mean, unless you have two X's, if you are genetically female, you're going to have two X chromosomes, and they will look the same. They're a homologous, obvious pair. The Y chromosome is a kind of a pathetic looking chromosome. It's a very powerful chromosome, but it is small and pathetic. Basically, it overrides everything. All males, I can't speak to other portions of the animal kingdom because I just don't know. But I do know that the genetic default for the male population is female. If the Y chromosome doesn't show up, every human being ever would be born female. The female is the more important in a male species. The female is the more important portion of the population. You don't have females, the population does not continue. So the default is female. If the Y shows up, it flips the switch, it makes that embryo develop male. And it doesn't matter how many other X chromosomes are present. So like in those expressions in these guys here, it doesn't matter how many, there could be two X's, there could be one X. If a Y is present at all, the embryo will develop male. So it's tiny and kind of pathetic looking, but it's really quite powerful, the Y chromosome. Interestingly enough, biologists or geneticists have discovered that the Y chromosome is actually deteriorating as generations pass and could theoretically disappear, which would not be great for the human race. Losing either one of these chromosomes would be awful for the human race. But it does seem to suggest that at some point in the future, we might not have any guys, which would be weird. This person is what? What is the genetic sex of this person? Evelyn? Male, because of that value right there. Good morning. Yeah. I will wait. Okay, bye. Okay, that's it. This is today's lesson. Completing the ideas on DNA structure, function, the concept of chromosomes and alleles, and then this diagram right here, the karyotype. So what I'm going to get you guys to now, the remainder of class, there's about half an hour left in the block. For those of you who are interested in voting, you're welcome to go vote. But while we're, to end the class, what I'm going to get you guys to do is I'm going to get you guys to review a bunch of these concepts that we've covered. Starting on this page, it's labeled down here as page 3. I want you to start going through and answering these questions. I want you to go all the way 3, 4, 5. There is a page 6. Those 4 pages are what I want you working through now. We will take a look at DNA replication. The next page is called DNA replication. We'll do that on Monday. That is the end of this first set of lessons, unless there are any questions about anything. Evelyn, if you have any more questions about anything we talked about today, otherwise, I want you guys to take a look at this. Sorry? This one, connect them to each other? No, I'm going to use one for DNA replication and one for protein synthesis. So, and these are the different blocks. Okay, so